This is exactly why you never go into margin. Look, this guy posted on our stocks 3 hours ago. The headline is very dramatic, very unpleasant. Help me out with a terrible situation, margin call. I feel bad for the guy already, but I want you to read this with me and I want you to listen to what I gotta say because I'm gonna save a lot of people from doing something very stupid. Listen to this guy. He says, before I start, yes, I was stupid and yes, I learned my lesson the hard way, but I'm trying to seek help for the current situation. So at least he knows he fucked up, which is half the solution. And here's where it gets interesting. So I'm in a terrible situation. I made good money with AMD having invested in 2017. So check this out. This is a guy who invested long term for 4 or 5 years into a great company and made some money. Surprise. Invest in long companies, stay there, and let the money add up. What could go wrong? Now, what could go wrong is human nature. And what ended up happening, as you're about to find out, is the greed, the human nature actually screwed with his strategy, the lack of discipline. So what he did is, as you can read it here, last year I made a big bet with XLNX merger into AMD, buying a lot of XLNX shares on margin. That's a second mistake, on margin. Why would you play around with money you don't got? To try and capture the premium. 400K margin on 900K account. Oh my God, at the same time. So this guy not only broke the cardinal rule of not trying to time the market, he was already making good money by being long on a great stock. So he broke that rule. He's trying to time the market. Now he's broken the second rule, which is take money you can't afford to lose and gamble that away. $400,000 in margin just because of greed. Okay, first time on margin for me, and I'm betting last time as well. Merger happened later than expected and after the market crashed already. So in the last few months, my account has gone from $900,000 to $100,000. 400K position, almost all AMD shares. I've been desperately trying to prevent getting liquidated on multiple margin calls by injecting cash. But, as always this happens, recent margin call, I became partially liquidated, around 7% of position. They can force you to do that. When you go into margin, they control your actions, not you. I'm totally out of cash now, and I'm in another margin call from last week. I do believe that AMD is a very undervalued company at this current price. A logical assessment, maybe true, maybe not true, but it's a reasonable position. It's not ridiculous. And it might have a small rally after the earnings later this month, possibly. After which I hope to deleverage significantly. It has been a hell for me and my family. It's tough for me to read this. As a family man, it's absolutely hard for me to read this. Question is, will I survive until then due to the terrible macro? So what happened is he made a gamble with money he couldn't afford to lose, tried to time the market, and then the market flipped on him because of macroeconomics. And now he's getting margin called and he can't afford it. And now he's not dependent on himself, he's dependent on macro. On a different subreddit, I was suggested by multiple people to sell out of the money calls and with the capital raised, either buy puts or sell cover calls. E.g., he could sell 13 OTM leaps for 1K a piece and cover his margin and yet still have 3,700 free shares to sell 30 DTE covered calls on. I'm not the best with options, so please help me understand the above plan. So the steps would be to first liquidate shares, then to raise some cash, sell some OTM calls with that money, with the profit, buy puts or sell more calls, blah, 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 blah. This is a guy who's in deep shit, who's now about to get into some deeper shit. This is like compounding mistakes. First of all, did I explain that correctly? Can someone please spell out what they mean? So you're about to do something you don't fully understand just because somebody on some subreddit told you. After you try to time the market, after you went into margin to do that, after you liquidated what seems to be an incredible long-term investment into a great company. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. When you become desperate, when you become emotionally unhinged, this is the sort of thing that happened. All of a sudden, for him, that seems reasonable. He's even asking that if that's reasonable here. He doesn't see how ridiculous that is because of the situation he's in. Anyone can get in the same place. Believe me. He's not a bad person. He's not an idiot. Emotionally, he's just all over the place because of what happened. I'm assuming he doesn't sleep a lot. I'm assuming he's stressed out, and that's normal. Is it a good idea in your opinion? What would happen if I did that, the stock recovers or drops further? I do think that there's a higher chance of some recovery in the next few days or weeks. So all of a sudden now he's gambling even more. He's speculating even more about days and weeks. I mean, this is just absolutely crazy. For a dumb simpleton like me, I don't think he's a dumb simpleton. He's just made some poor choices. Would it be just better to pray for a bear market rally, praying for a minimal liquidation until then, and then deleverage significantly? Thank you. Well, look, I'm not going to give him advice about whether to wait or not to wait, because here's what happened here. The man put himself in a bad position by trying to time the market with money he doesn't own, and now his only solution out of this, as the way he perceives it, is trying to time the market again, whether by options or by trying to wait for a bear market rally to get out. It's just making a bad situation worse. Now, look, he's in a tough position, but you don't have to be. If you make some money in the stock market, if you have a good time, remember the few cardinal rules you never ever break. And I've been talking about it for months. In fact, for years. Do not try to time the market. Do not gamble on money you can't afford to lose. When you put money in the stock market, the assumption is that money is gone, you'll never see it again, and you should be 100% fine with it. You don't do that with your kids' tuition, with your rent money, and definitely with money you have to borrow. And I know you hear a lot of stories about people who are going into margin, making a shit ton of money, and they're creating FOMO for you, they're creating greed for you. But just be patient, stay long. If this guy would have stayed with AMD for another 5 years until 2027, do you think it would have been worse or better than this current situation? Vote below, comment below, tell me what you think. That's the answer for you about what he should do next.